Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, you're welcome to Sew with Mediva. And if you're a returning subscriber or a returning viewer, thank you for sticking to my channel. So in today's video, I'll be showing you guys how to cut and sew this trendy mini side gathered dress with cape in front, and I achieved this style using 3 yards of African print fabric. If this is something you are interested in, make sure to keep watching and make sure you watch till the end so that you don't miss out on any detail. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment and subscribe to my channel. So I made use of 3 yards of this beautiful African print fabric. So it's a two pattern fabric, so I just mixed it up to make my dress, and I have my other materials here. So we're going to start by drafting on the pattern paper. So we'll be starting with the front panel, and I have the pattern paper cut out already. So the full length of my dress is 35 inches, but I have 36 inches here because of the folding allowance. And for the wideness of the paper, I used my hip measurements divided by 4 plus 3 extra inches, which is about 14 inches. The first thing to do is to mark out a starting line, which is going to serve as the shoulder line. And so from that shoulder line, I'm going to take the remaining vertical measurements I need for this dress. The first one is from the shoulder to the bust line, which is 10.5. The next one is from the shoulder to the under bust, which is 13.5. And the next is from the shoulder to the half length, and then the shoulder to the hip line. So after marking your own correct measurements, go ahead to extend the lines this way and then label them appropriately to avoid any confusion. After that, I'll come over to the shoulder line and mark my shoulder measurements divided by 2, which is 8 inches. So I'll go ahead to just mark a basic 3 inches by 3 inches neckline. Although we won't be needing this neckline, but I just want you guys to understand what I'm doing. So I'll mark 3 by 3 inches and then connect it all the way up this way. After that, I'll come over to the shoulder line, that 8 inches points that I marked. I'm going to come down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope and connect it all the way to the neckline this way. So from the shoulder slope I just marked, I'm going to come down to my chest line, which is 8 inches. So to get your chest line, divide your bust measurements by 6 and add 1.5 inches to it. I'll connect the points this way and further extend the line to create the chest line. After that, I'll locate the midpoint of this line I just marked, which is 4 inches for me, and then I'll come in by 0.5 inches, half of an inch, and then go ahead to use my curved roller to create my armhole curve. So the next thing to do is to mark out the dart line. So to get your dart line, divide your nipple to nipple measurement by 2. For me, it is 4 inches, and I marked it on all the lines this way. So I'm going to be extending my chest line, and then I'll also extend the dart line all the way up. So the next thing you want to do is to determine how low you want your dress to be, the neckline of your dress. So for mine, I'm going to come up by 2 inches from this chest line. This is because I want the cleavage area covered. So if you want yours open, you can just maintain the neckline as the chest line. I hope you guys understand. But for mine, I came up by 2 inches for the neckline. So that means from my shoulder, I took about 7 inches off, as you can see. So I'll go ahead now to connect this new line, which is going to serve as the neckline of my dress. So the next thing I want to do is to do the under bust tightening, and I'll be taking 1 inch on both sides of the line. On the waistline, I'll also take 1 inch on both sides and then connect the points together. On the bust line, I'll come down by 1 inch and then use my curved ruler to connect it all the way to meet the under bust this way. And after that, I'll come over to this new chest line now and take half an inch on both sides and then go ahead to use my ruler to connect it to the bust line this way. And then from the hip line, I'll come up by 3 inches and then just use my ruler to create my dart this way. So this is all for the dart. The next thing is to mark the body measurement. So on the bust line, I'll mark my bust measurements divided by 4. I'll add 1.5 inches for seam allowance, and then I'll mark it there. So go ahead to mark your own correct measurements. So I'm going to mark that same thing on my bust line. So I initially marked it on my chest line, so I'll mark it on my bust line now. And on the under bust, I'll mark my round under bust measurements divided by 4. I'll add this 2 inches for that and 1.5 inches for seam allowance. And on the waistline, I'll mark my round waist measurement. So my waist measurement and my under bust measurement is the same, so I just went ahead to mark the same thing. And on the hip line, I marked my hip measurements divided by 4 plus 1.5 inches for seam allowance, and then I connected all the points together this way. So from the hip line, I'll just connect the straight line all the way down to the full length. So this dart I have on this new chest line, I'm going to replace it outside the armhole curve, which is 1 inch. So I'll extend the line outside and create a new armhole curve, just as you can see me doing in the video. You're going to disregard the old armhole curve. So we're going to be opening up these shaded areas on the pattern. The next thing we want to do is to work on the side gathers. So from the center front, I'm going to come in by 3 inches. So I'll mark 3 inches from the point where my dart stopped. I'm going to mark 3 inches all the way down. So you don't want that center point to be too wide. That's why I am using 3 inches. You can as well use 4 inches if you're working with a bigger size person. And then I'll connect it all the way there. And then from the waistline on the side, I'm going to come down by 1.5 inches. I initially marked 2 inches, but I ended up using 1.5. So I'll go ahead now to use dotted lines to connect it all the way to the sides. Just watch what I'm doing. So I ended up using 1.5 inches, as you can see. And then I'll go ahead to curve out the lines very well. So I made sure my curve went just below my dart, not above the dart. And then I'm just marking it out very well. So on this side, I'm going to mark 1.5 inches lines apart. I'm going to just take 1.5 inches and mark it this way, and then go ahead to extend it all the way down to the full length. This is because we're going to be using slash and spread method for the side of our dress. Then I'll number it accordingly. So this is basically all for the front part of this dress, the front pattern. I'll go ahead now to cut it out. Before I cut it out, to create a little opening in front, I'm going to come in by 0.75 inches from the center front, that little V-shaped design, and then I'll connect it all the way to my chest line. So if you want yours more open, you can connect all the way to your bust line, but for mine, I'm going to stop on the chest line because I don't want any exposure. So we're going to be cutting out that part. So I'll separate the upper part, which we don't need, and then I'll cut it out, just as you can see me doing in the video. So I'll go ahead to separate this side and just set it aside, and then I'll open up the dart points. So after I opened up, this is what we have. I'm going to be using this to cut on my fabric and my lining. And for the side, we're going to do slash and spread on our fabric when we're ready to do that part. So let's go ahead to work on the back panel. So I'll label them and just set it aside. So for the back panel, I've gone ahead to cut out my pattern paper, and I also marked my basic measurements on it. So I just recreated what we did on the front panel on the back so that we don't waste too much time. From the shoulder line, I came down to my bust point of 10.5 and then to my waistline. So for the back panel, you won't be needing your under bust, and then to the hip line. And the back is also going to have a zipper allowance of 1.5 inches towards the center back. So this is me just labeling the lines like I did with the front. So after that, the next thing I'm going to do is to extend the chest line into the pattern this way, and then mark out the dart line. So I'm using the same 4 inches I used in front, and then I would connect the points together. So I'll come up again by 2 inches just like we did for the front panel. So the back neckline is going to be the same as the front. And then I'll extend the dart line all the way up. So I'll come over to the waistline to mark the dart. I'll take half an inch on both sides. And then from the hip line, just like I did earlier, I'll come up again by 3 inches. And then go ahead to connect the points together this way. So and then I'll connect it all the way up to the chest line like this. After that, the next thing is to mark the body measurement. And on the chest line, I'll mark the round bust measurements divided by 4 and add my seam allowance. I'll mark the same measurements on the bust line. On the waist, I'll mark my waist measurements divided by 4. I'll add my 1 inch dart and 1.5 inches for seam allowance. And on the hip line, I'll mark the hip measurements divided by 4 plus 1.5 inches for seam allowance. So mark your own correct measurement and connect the points together this way. And extend it all the way down to the full length. After doing that, I would get the midpoint of this line and then go ahead to create my back armhole. This time you won't be coming in by 0.5 inches. So to eliminate any zipper bulge at the back, I'm going to come in by half of an inch from the center back and then extend it all the way up this way and all the way down this way. So we're going to be cutting out that part. The next thing I'm going to do is to get the side of my front panel and just go ahead to place it on the back pattern this way. So I'll make sure all the lines are aligned and confirm all the measurements. So after confirming that all the measurements are the same, I'm going to just go ahead now and trace out the same shape this way. Trace it out on the back and just connect it all the way down. So we're going to be cutting out this part. So to eliminate any kind of gaping at the back, I'm going to come in by 1 inch from the armhole and then go ahead to create a new armhole curve this way. So you're going to disregard the old one and work with this new one. The next thing we want to do now is to cut it out. So I will take out the upper part, which we won't be needing, and then cut out the remaining parts. So I'll take out this zipper bulge allowance, and then I'll also open up the darts. So I'll go ahead to label my patterns now. So this is the center back and I'll be cutting out 2 pieces CB, and this is the side back and I'll also cut out 2 pieces. So for this one, since it's identical to what we have in front, we won't be using this pattern. We'll just make use of the front pattern to cut out the flare for both the front and the back panels. So I'll go ahead now to use my patterns to cut out on my fabric and my lining, and then I'll show you guys the next thing to do. So I'm gonna head to use my patterns to cut on my fabric, and this is what we have. So towards the dart areas, I added half an inch all around, added at the upper part and also for the side joining, as you can see. And I also cut out my lining pieces as well, and I have 2 pieces of each, 2 pieces of lining and 2 pieces of fabric. And for the front panels, I have also cut it out and I added half an inch all the way around the dart areas, added for the side joining and also added to the upper part of my dress. So I'm going to take out the pattern papers now so that we can start joining. Before I set the pattern papers aside, I'm going to use it to cut out my breast pad. So I'm going to be padding the bust area of my dress. So from the under bust, I'm going to just go ahead to cut it out. And for the sides, I'm going to come to my bust line and come out by 4 inches, which is my bust pad measurements divided by 2, and then go ahead to curve it out this way. So cut out that part like this. So I'm going to be using this now to cut on my breast pad. So this is a thicker form of interfacing. It's called a breast pad. So I folded it into 2 and make sure the center front is towards the folded angle to get this. And for the sides, I just went ahead to cut out 2 separate pieces. So I'm going to place the part that has the gum on the wrong side of my fabric and then go ahead to iron it out. And for the sides as well, I'm going to place them on the wrong side. So you can also use a ready-made cup for this. It is still going to give you the same effect. So I'll go ahead to iron it to my fabric till the gum is activated. I'll come down by half of an inch because of the turning over with the lining. So I'll go ahead to iron it out this way on it, and then I'll show you guys what it looks like when I'm done. So after I iron the breast part to it, this is what we have. So the next thing we want to do is to join these pieces together. I'm going to place them right sides facing each other this way, and then go ahead to use my half an inch allowance to stitch it together. You can as well pin it down first before stitching. So I'll just pin the upper part and then go ahead to stitch it. When I'm done with that side, I will do the same thing on the other one. So note that whatever you are doing on your fabric, you're doing the same thing on your lining pieces. You can also iron your air stay to your fabric to give it more weight if you want to. And you can also iron the air stay on your lining pieces. So I'm going to go ahead to join the lining pieces just the same way I joined my main fabric. So for the back panels, I will remove the pattern papers now. So you're going to have 2 pieces of your center back just like this, and 2 pieces of the lining as well. And for the side, you'll also have 2 pieces like this. So I'll go ahead to join them together. Using the half an inch allowance I added, I will join the two pieces together. Don't forget to also iron your ear stay to the back panels as well. Then I'll join the other side. I'll repeat the same process on the lining and show you guys. So guys, this is for the front. I'm gonna head to join it together, and this is what it looks like. So I'm going to take my scissors now and just open up the seam area this way. I'll open it up this way on both sides. So after I open up, I'm going to go ahead to iron this on the tailor's ham. So you're going to place it on a circular surface and then open up the seam and iron it out very well. This is going to help the bustier appear very neat on the right side. And when you are done with that, you turn it again to the right side, place it on the tailor's ham or a circular surface and iron it on the right side as well. Go ahead to iron it. So this is what our bustier looks like even before ironing. So I've gone ahead to also join the back panels together, and this is what we have. So I'll open up the seam areas like I did with the front and also iron it out. So note that whatever you are doing on your main fabric, you're also going to do it on your lining. So guys, after I ironed it out, this is what it looks like. I also went ahead to iron out my lining as well. So before we turn it over with the lining, we're going to fix our cape and our sleeve. Let's go ahead now to cut that out. So for the cape, I'm going to measure what I have from this center front all the way to the armhole area. So I have about 6.5 inches, but I'm only going to be doing 6 inches because I want the remaining half an inch as my seam allowance. So I'm going to cut out that 6 inches for both sides. And for the height of your cape, for mine I made use of 2.5 inches. You can also do 3 inches if you want to. So I'm going to head to cut out the fabric, and you can see it's in a fold of 2 and I have 2 pieces of it. So the wideness is 7 inches because I'll be using half an inch on both sides to join it, and the height is about 3 inches because of the seam allowance. So I'll place them right side facing each other and go ahead to close up the sides using half of an inch. I'll repeat the same thing on the other side and turn it over. So after I turned over to the right side and ironed out, this is what it looks like. So I'll place the open angle on the upper part of my dress this way. So you can see the half inch that I left for my turning allowance. And then I'll use my pin to hold it down. So take it to my sewing machine now and stitch it together using half inch. I'll do the same thing on the other side. Place your cape on it this way and then go ahead to stitch it down. So when I'm done stitching the cape, I'll show you guys what it looks like. So after stitching down, this is what we have. The next thing we want to work on is the sleeve. So remember we came down by 7 inches from the shoulder for our neckline. So I'm going to take out 1 inch from that 7 inches because of the shoulder slope. So I'm left with 6 inches for the front and 6 inches for the back. So I'll be needing 12 inches in total for the length of my sleeve. So I have the fabric for my sleeve cut out already, and the length is 14 inches because I'll need my seam allowance, my joining allowance. So it's in a fold of 2. Then I'll further go ahead to fold it into 4 this way. So note that for this dress, you can decide to work with whatever sleeve you want, whatever design you want for your sleeve. So I'm going to come out by 4.5 inches, which is going to be the widest part of my sleeve. And then I'll come down and take 3 inches, and then I'll take 2 inches, and then I'll go ahead to just connect the points together this way to form like a cap sleeve. So after cutting out, this is what it looks like. So this is what the sleeve will look like on the shoulder. So I'm going to use this now to cut out another sleeve and show you guys. So note that you have to iron your ear stay to these fabrics, or you can as well line it if you want to. So I'll fold it the right sides facing each other this way and go ahead to close up the curved area. I'll repeat the same thing for this other side. I'll turn it over from the sides and show you guys the next thing to do. So after I turned over and ironed it out, this is what it looks like. The next thing we want to do is to attach it to our dress. So I'm going to place the sleeve on the neckline this way, making sure the right sides are facing each other. And then I'll go ahead to pin it down. You can see I still left my half an inch turning over allowance on the armhole area. So I'll pin it down there. And then I'll do the same thing for the other side, starting from that same point of the cape, and then I'll go ahead to pin it down. So after pinning, you can decide to just go ahead to stitch before you turn over with your lining. So your sleeve is going to appear this way on your shoulder when you are done. So I'll get my lining now and place it right sides facing each other this way. And then I'll go ahead to close up the neckline. Starting from the center front, I'll close up the neckline and close up the upper part, close up the armhole. Do the same thing for the other side, and I'll also close up the side. Close up the side. So when I'm done doing all of that, I will turn it over and show you guys. So guys, after I turned over with the lining, this is what it looks like. You can see how beautiful this looks already. So don't forget to notch the neckline before you turn over. And I also went ahead to stitch this on the right side. I joined the lining and the fabric together so that it stays firm. The next thing we want to do is to attach the sleeve to the back panels. So these are my back panels. I'm going to place the front panel on it, right sides facing each other this way, and then I'll place my sleeve on it like this. I'll also place it on the other side. You can see that I still left the same half an inch that I left on the front panel, and go ahead to pin it down. So I'll place my lining pieces on it this way, and then go ahead to stitch the upper part, close up the armhole, and then close up the zipper allowance area. I'll do the same thing for the other side. I'll close up the upper part, close up the armhole and the zipper allowance, and then go ahead to turn it over. So after I turned over, this is what it looks like. So on the right side, I joined the lining and the fabrics together to help it stay firm. The next thing I'm going to do is to place them right sides facing each other and then close up the sides this way. After closing up the sides, this is what we have. You can see our dress is taking shape already. You can see how beautiful it looks now. So another thing I did was to stitch my cape down to my fabric so that it stays firm. The next thing we want to work on is our side gathers. So I'm going to just slash my pattern this way. So after slashing, I'm going to be spreading this on a fabric that is in a fold of 2. So I've gone ahead to spread my patterns on a fabric that is in a fold of 2. So I make sure the number 5 is towards the folded part of my fabric, as you can see. And for each pattern, I have about 4 inches apart. So if you want yours fuller, you can do more than that, and if you want it less full, you can do less than that. So I'll go ahead now to follow the shape and cut it out. So I added half an inch allowance to the upper part for joining. So after cutting out, I'm going to notch the part where I have the sharp bend. This is going to guide you when you are creating your gather. So go ahead to notch the part that you have that very sharp bend. So this is just for one side of my gathers. I'm going to use this now to cut out another fabric for the second side. This is for one side, and I'm gonna head to cut out for the other side. So I also notched that sharp bend on the fabric. So I'll take out my pattern paper now and show you guys how to attach this fabric to the side of your dress. So I'll go ahead now to get my dress, and I'll open up the side this way. So pay close attention to this part of this dress. So I'll go ahead to notch the midpoint of this fabric, the gathers fabric. I'll go ahead to notch the midpoint, which is the folded angle, and then I'm going to place that notched area facing the side joining of my dress this way and go ahead to pin it down. You can see the right sides of the fabrics are facing each other. I'll go ahead to pin it down. So after that, I'll pick the lower part of the fabric this way, the lower part, and merge it to the lower part of my dress like this. And then up to that point where we notched, remember that part we notched, the sharp curve, I'm going to go ahead to pin it to the fabric straight up this way. So that notched area is going to guide you where you are going to start your gathers from. And I'll pick the base of the other side of my fabric, and then I'll merge it to the base of my dress this way. Up to that point where I notched, I would pin it down. So right now, I'll take this to my sewing machine and sew a straight stitch up to the part where I notched. I'll stop there, and I'll do the same thing for the other side. So after sewing a straight stitch from the base all the way to that notched point, this is what we have. So right now, you'll notice that you have a lot of excess between the center point to that notched point. So what you're going to do now is to gather that excess you have to your main dress this way. So while you are joining the fabrics together, go ahead to create gathers with the excess fabric that you have. I hope you guys understand what I did here. So create your gathers, and this is going to help create the design you want on your dress. So I'm going to repeat the same process on the other side and show you guys. So guys, after I attach this is what it looks like. You can see how beautiful this looks already. So I used the other pattern on my fabric to create the gather so that you guys would see it better. So I'll flip it over this way and close up the back of my dress. So I'll go ahead to close it up to the point where I want my zipper to stop. So I'll use my remaining 1 inch to close up the back this way. After closing up, I'll also fold the base of my dress in twice. I'll fold it in twice this way and stitch it all around. So when I'm done doing all of that, I'll show you guys. So after I finished up the base of the dress and also closed up the back, this is what it looks like. So the remaining open part is going to be for our zipper. I'll just go ahead now to flip this over to the wrong side. I'll iron out my zipper allowance, or you can just go ahead to mark it out with your chalk, and I'll place the right side of my zipper facing the fabric this way. I'll fold in the upper part and then go ahead to stitch it on the line all the way down. I'll repeat the same process on the other side. Fold in the zipper and go ahead to stitch on my fabric this way. So after inserting the zipper, this is what it looks like. So you can see how beautiful this dress came out. You can as well go ahead to make your cover buttons and just fix at the center point of your dress. So guys, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment and share to your loved ones. Bye.